Hello my lovely sewing friends, it's Catherine here. Welcome to my YouTube channel Serenity Sews, and this week I am continuing our A to Z of sewing skills, sewing knowledge. It's been a long time since we did this particular part of my YouTube series, but we're up to the letter H. And so what I'm going to do today, because this can be as long or as short, which it often is, with hemming. So we are going to talk through some of my must-dos, some of my try-to-dos, and some of my would like to do betters. So H stands for hems or hemming. So what is a hem? A hem is a finish to a garment that generally means to neaten the length or the long line of the garment to underneath, and that can be either the sleeves, as here, or the bottom of the garment. There's lots and lots of information out there, and as you know, most of us turn to YouTube for information when we're looking to do things. So I would encourage you, if there's something in particular you'd like to know, do have a look first and do practice before you undertake your particular hem. So I'm going to talk about general tips first of all. So if you're using a heavy or medium weight fabric, the general rule of thumb for a hemline that you might want to use is 2 to 3 centimeters, so about 1.5 inches. That is more appealing to the length of the garment. It also helps to make the weight, if you like, hold the garment in place, and it's much more pleasing to the eye. If it is a very lightweight, lighter weight garment, or even sheer, then you would want to have as little hem showing as possible, and this is where we get into some of the fancy hemming techniques, and I'll come to that in a little while. So what do we need to think about when we are going to undertake hemming? Well, if the fabric you've used is likely to distort or drop, then it's very important for you to hang your garment before you even start to level the hem off, and then trim the excess that is giving you a wonky line, and then you can start to actually perform the sewing to complete your hemming or to hand sew. So a couple of other things. Look at where the bulk of the fabric is, and most often that will be where two pieces of fabric join together, so seam lines, pleating, those kind of things. And what you might want to do there is trim away so that it's a lighter amount of fabric next to each other. So I'm just going to go through here my process when I'm thinking about doing a hem. I'm just reading my notes so I don't get to miss things out. So I'll go along first of all and either thread trace, which means I use a double piece of thread, usually a basting thread, and I will thread along, making large stitches to show where I want that hem to be, and then I will press up the hemline. so that I can see then the thread line along the bottom. Now, of course, you don't have to do that, and I don't do that all the time, but this is the way I was taught to do it. Make sure it's level all the way round. So if you are thread tracing, you do want to continue measuring as you go along. And we've all got small line measures we can use, small tape measures, etc. So that's quite important, otherwise you can drift significantly off that line. I once measured, I did it just to see how good my eye is, and I think I'm pretty good at this, but actually I drifted by ½ an inch, and that's quite a lot. So make sure you're measuring all the time as you go round. Once you've done that, you're going to press your hem measurement and set it. So what I mean by that is go round pressing, not ironing, pressing. And what that does then is set the hemline, and as you lift it off, down again, as you lift it off, down again. So that sets the hemline, and give it a minute or two just to breathe, because some particularly natural fabrics need to breathe. If you're using steam for this, and most people will do, if you don't have a steam iron, you can use a damp cloth. So I usually do dry to start with, and then I'll steam to do a second press so that it sets it in place, and I can use my tailor's clapper to make sure I'm getting a nice crisp hem. But I only do that after I've steamed it, because then it absorbs the steam. Once you've got the hem in the place you want, it's pressed, you've steamed it, then you need to consider, am I machine sewing this, or am I going to hand sew it? And some people like to hand sew. So just to break away from that for a second, my old sewing teacher would only recommend that we hand sewed using these types of needles. So what you'll see there are some very fine needles, and these are called straw milliner's needles, and they're used for basting, gathering and over sewing. They're incredibly fine. I'll try and get one out. And they have a round hole in, I don't know whether you can see that, it's a round hole in the head. I doubt if you'll see that, it's so tiny. And then I like to use natural fibre like a silk to sew hems with. You shouldn't see any of the thread coming through. So I think I've got a cream one and this pale pink one. But the other thing you might want to do before you start to sew is prepare your thread by pulling it through a beeswax block like this. Now, I don't know whether you'll see, I'm moving it forward. It straightens, it coats the thread and straightens it incredibly. Now I usually just put a warm iron over the top of it so that it absorbs into the thread. Now the other advantage of doing that is that it tends not to get stuck or to form knots or rolls on itself. So it behaves really, really well if you use beeswax. on your thread when you're doing something like a hem. So if you are going to machine hem your garment, make sure that you've got the corresponding thread, obviously, because you don't want that coming through. And if you're outer side of the garment that the way that is seen, it's really, really important, I think, to have a straight line, and this is where your thread tracing comes in again. So yes, pin it, but actually go round and do another row of thread tracing where you want to do your hem. Finally, once you've done that, and this is I'm talking about a very typical type of hemming, final press, final hang, and just wear and admire, really. So I'm just going to go through now some different types of fabrics that might require and do require different approaches to hemming. So one of the challenges I think we have when we're making garments that are in knit, like this I'm wearing today, I'll just take the camera down slightly. So this, I think you need it more. Okay, so what you can see here is it's a very normal top with a round neckline. I've got cover stitched hems there, and this particular garment has a point on, I don't know whether I tip that forward there. There, look, it's quite a nice top, and I've made probably about 10 of these in their time. But can you see that point? Now that is tricky sometimes to get that as nice and crisp as it is on here. This is the pattern, New Look 6412, and it's a dress pattern as well, with a skirt and a cowl if you want. Like I say, I've made literally a dozen or more. But what I use, and many of us now have started to do, is use a very lightweight stretch strip of interfacing or tape before we finish the garment hem off. And it's amazing just what a difference that makes in terms of look, ease, and confidence, because actually when you get something right like that and it looks like it's professional, I do think there's no other feeling like it. It's wonderful. So for your knitted garments, that's important. I've got another one here that I did. Those of you who follow Beyond the Pink Door will perhaps recognise this. This is the New Look 6412 in the dress form, and this was one of the panels that I purchased from Andrea at Beyond the Pink Door. So once again, finished on the sleeve line with cover stitch, and the same with the hemline. There you go. Just makes such a world of difference in terms of precision. Now, if you are making a garment that needs a very, very crisp hem, or for instance you're making something that has a wide skirt, you might want that to take its own shape. So what you can use in those instances is something called horsehair braid, or you can actually buy a braid that is slightly concave, and you stitch along the edge, and then it actually turns itself inside so that it holds the hem but also makes the skirt stand proud on its own. So if you're making, say, a bridal gown, an evening gown, prom dress, something like that, that is a very useful thing you can buy from haberdasheries. And there are lots and lots, like William G in London, they supply it. Okay, so let's have a look at other types of hems. Now, I do like this type of hem. This is a top I made ages and ages ago, and the pattern's not around. I don't know what I've done with it, I've lost it, but it was a new look pattern. However, because this Nanny Aero linen is so precious, and I didn't want this to just really wear for one summer. I wanted this to last forever and ever. And I know that if you put a little bit extra work into the hem, garments like this last. So I made my own facing for the neck rather than having bias tape, which they suggested. Also facings for the sleeve. But one of the most useful ways is to make facings for the hem. And when you do that, you make a deep hem. So mine here is 3 inches. And what that does, it gives it weight, but it also gives it durability. I just love this this top. Made, it comes out every year, and I think this is about the 5th year. But yeah, something on a linen, or perhaps a double gauze, having a double hem like this, which basically means you cut out a facing. So let me show you what that might mean. Now, this is a pattern, and I'm making another one of these at the moment. This is a Mimi G pattern, and it's Simplicity 8889, and I'm making this version obviously longer though. That's far too short on me, so I made it an inch longer on this version, but I'm making it now 2 inches longer. So this is a shirt with facings on the cuff there, but also we've got a double faced placket, which means that the buttonholes are concealed, as you can see down there, but also the hems have their own placket, and it just gives this a more luxurious finish, I think. So if you're considering trying this pattern out, the only thing I would say is make sure you get the measurement to where you want it to be before you cut it out. So that's a self-facing or a self-placket. I want to now move on to something a little bit different. This is a very lightweight tencel from John Lewis, I think, long gone out of their shop now. So this asks you to self-face, but using bias tape, and it instructs you how to make it. Oh, by the way, this is the Sew Over It Dana dress, and again, when that ebook first came out, I made this, and this comes out every year now. It's beautiful and light and flowy. It has got a very, very narrow hem at the bottom, and I did a twin needle on this. I'm not sure where you pick that up, and that is a nice way to finish. Now this weight fabric holds that. If I were using something much more floaty, like a chiffon, etc., I would want to go on to do something like a rolled hem or a narrow hem. Now, a narrow hem, a useful way to do this is to drop your stitch number down as low as you can and do a row of stitches about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch from the bottom. Once you've done that, that allows you then to fold it over on itself and do a final stitch or hemline along the bottom of the garment. Trying to do it without putting in that first line of stitches, it's impossible, I find. So if you have got something very flimsy and you're struggling with it, try that tip. 1/4 of an inch maximum from the edge, as low stitch length setting as you can, and then just complete that, roll it over, and then hem as your final finish for your garment. Hand stitching. Lots of us do like a little bit of hand stitching, and there are various ways you can finish it, finish a garment off. I tend to use a whip stitch, which is quite a fast way. Slip stitch is another. Whatever stitch you use, you shouldn't be able to see it on the outside of the fabric, and you should see very minimal on the underside. Final thoughts, actually. If you're making something like a jacket or a pencil skirt with some wool fabric, lots of fashion houses or designers will put small weights into the hemline, stitch them in on the folded under part, and then obviously finish as per normal. These weights cause the garment to hang and not to flip up. Of course, the Queen would always have had those sewn into her coats and her dresses, and I think I've got a dress and a longer coat that I wore when I went to the garden party at Buckingham Palace, and that had small weights in the bottom. So that's another little trick of the trade. In a Chanel jacket, you will see along the hemline there a chain stitched in, and that again acts in the same way. It gives it weight, it makes it robust, it stops it curling. So it's a useful way to finish off high quality garments. I will say trousers have traditionally used various methods to finish them off, but usually they are using a hem stitch or a what's it called? You'll get one with your sewing machine, a blind hem stitch. Yeah, that's it. Just be aware that if you are making a pair of trousers that are typically dress trousers or fitted trousers, in I would say olden days, in my days, I was taught that the back of the trouser line should finish, is it 3/4 of an inch longer than the front? So the front of the trouser would rest almost on the upper part of your foot, and the back of the trouser should meet where the heel of the shoe is. Now, that may be completely unnecessary today by many people's standards of how they sew their trouser garments up, but this is, a little bit history, tricks, and it is about why sometimes trousers look longer at the back than the front. I think I have done as much as I can for hemming in a general way. I am going to slip a couple of little videos in that I've done using a rolled hem. That's a technique I quite like. And I did a narrow rolled hem on my sewing machine as well. So I'm going to put those in for you to look at. But I've really enjoyed doing this A to Z topic. Hope you find that there's things in here that will be useful for you, and I'm going to come back in a couple of weeks with another of my videos. I'll probably show you what I've been making, and I'll try and get some good photos. I might have my hubby lined up to do some photographs for me, but I had a massive cutting out before I went to have the operation on my hand, which is healing now. So it is probably, I will probably get that all sewn up in the next week or two. So until then, I am going to say God bless all of you. Enjoy your sewing. I know you do, but just to spend your hobby feeling that you're creating something for you, and I think there's nothing quite like that feeling. And I'm going to wish you all the best and be kind. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for all the comments you give me, and I'll see you very, very soon. Bye for now.